Happy New Year! 7 continents of the world. 7 continents. Australia, Antarctica, Asia, Africa, North America, South America, Europe. We're back again. Yes, 7 billion people. We of the largest concentration of Black people, Nigeria, we're not leaving you. We are still here. We're still going to talk about Nigeria. I mean, it's the ship of state is near rudderless, if not rudderless. Nothing has really changed. The budget for the year 2025 doesn't give the kind of hope people would like to see. Just last year, people were dying just trying to get rice to eat. You know, I mean, it's something that when I was younger, I see happen in other countries. We call them banana republic, poverty-stricken country. But almost everything we thought was impossible in Nigeria has come to be part of the daily life and now normal things, you know. Now we have the national grid collapsing, just like it's almost a weekly occurrence now, you know. We just don't know. There's no hope. But it's also looking like the party in power is trying to run a one-party state. I don't even see any sign that they want to be democratic. I don't see our elections in the nearest future being free and fair. I've said it in the past, our elections used to be free but not fair. Now they're not free, they're not fair. Now we need very strong opposition movement. We don't seem to be seeing the parties doing it. The PDP is not doing what it's supposed to do. It's near dead too. Maybe I should use the word comatose. Now the Labour Party in itself doesn't seem to know what it's doing. But there's a group of people we call the obedient movement. The people, in my opinion, and a lot of people agree with me, are the only vibrant opposition we have today. That's why today we're going to talk to somebody who is vital statistics, who is relevant in the structure and the organogram and the way things are done in the obedient movement. Today, our guest is Dr. Moses Paul. Dr. Moses Paul, welcome to Atlanta Discourse.
Thank you. It's so good to be here. It's been a long time coming, and it's good to be. It's good to be here with Atlanta Discourse. Yeah.
Great. So we're talking about how the obedient movement kind of explore the opportunities for growth and impacts, you know. So it's a good way to start the year. We need very serious opposition. The legislative arm of government is almost non-existent. Rubber stamp. If there's a word worse than rubber stamp, the judiciary we know is even worse off, you know. And international organizations are saying that the Nigerian judiciary is actually more corrupt than the Nigerian police. They've collected more bribe than the Nigerian custom. That's unbelievable because those two organs, police and custom, we know from time immemorial are competing for who is number one. So we have a tradition. We go for the jugular. So let's see. And we're going to look at strategic consideration and your tactical approaches to. There are a lot of people, you know, because I've spoken to people in your movement in the past. I spoke to Oseloka, he has been my guest. I've spoken to, that's O.H. Obaze, Aki Oshitoko, and they all feel that Peter Obi won the last election. So before we go to strategic discussion, do you also agree that Peter Obi won the last election? Let me ask you that.
I mean, we live in the age of data, and everything is quite clear. I mean, you can see that strategically, Mr. Peter Obi, it was declared he won Abuja, which is the seat of power. And don't forget, there's a caveat, you know, for anybody who must rule Nigeria in terms of winning Abuja as the federal capital. I mean, he won the most populous state in Africa, not just Nigeria, the Lagos state, which seats millions, over 20 million inhabitants. He won it very clearly, you know, and it was after those, you know, datas were coming out, and then we started having glitches in the IREV, you know. So the datas are quite clear. He won every military habitation in the country. He won the North Central, he won the South, he won Lagos, Southeast, almost to the point where they were calling it a scam. So going by the number of people, the registered voters that we have, and also, this is not my word. In Rivers State, for example, somebody who was rewarded for rigging the election in Rivers State, the people who rigged the elections came out and said, we rigged the elections, that Peter Obi won it, but we rigged the election. This is not my word. This is against, you know, what they've come out to say. So, INEC decided that he got 6 million votes and that our current president has 8 million votes. And going by the data that we have over 10 million registered obedient, and this is just with the data, our own data. So, I mean, I don't think we need to speak more on that. Overwhelmingly, I can categorically say on this platform that Mr. Peter Obi won the last general election.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, it's ironic because I know the budget for that election, more than half of the money was for technology. And it's sad that the technology itself was not allowed to work. Okay, no problem.
Over close to 400 billion was earmarked for
about
that.
430. When you look at the subvention from government, the money from EU, America, and other support, that's true. What a waste. Yeah. So all right. So rebuilding trust. I know you follow Mr. Peter Obi everywhere. You're touring the country. What do you want to achieve with going around the country? Because it looks like, because the last time I saw you was in Houston, and that same day you left for California, and I was monitoring you that week. Monday you were in Kano, Tuesday you were in Ile-Ife, the Wednesday of that same week you were in London and Manchester. Thursday I saw you in Houston. The Friday you left Houston on Thursday. Friday you were in California. Saturday, you were in Atlanta. Yeah, and by Sunday you were in the UK again. And so, I mean, that's a lot of movement. It's what you see with presidents during election. So why the general moving around and all that? What is it? Is it sensitization? Is it rebuilding trust? Is it preparing for 2027? Can you tell our viewers?
The obedient movement is rooted. It's about good governance. It's about accountability. It's about responsibility. And I will say this, Mr. Peter Obi as a person has completely changed the narrative of how politics is done in Africa and in Nigeria particularly. Up until before now, immediately after elections, what politicians do is that they retire to their homes. Those who go back to the UK, to the US, or Dubai, as the case may be. But Mr. Peter Obi, from day one, after the general elections, what he has done together with the obedient movement is almost like an imam or a pastor who goes around to ensure that his sheep, the integrity of the movement, to ensure that there is fellowship so that people don't easily, because Nigerians, they easily forget, the tenets through which, power is formed and through which, the electioneering is done. What he has done is to ensure that that tenacity, that energy, that spirit, that essence, to ensure that the value of the electorate does not wind down, to ensure grassroots participation, which is what the obedient movement is about, to ensure that we continue to leverage on all of these energies that has been garnered, between 2022 and 2023 to enforce and speak the narrative of moving from consumption to production, to hold the diaspora responsible for what they are supposed to do, to continue to hold to account, leadership, so that regardless of who is there, the promissory note of governance, of government, are held to account. This is what Mr. Peter Obi has done, since after the election, to ensure that Nigerians do not forget. And I tell you what, it is that leadership that Nigeria has never had up until today. To have a leader who is not about the cycle of election, but to ensure that how do I put it now? What governance is truly about. Governance is not rhetoric. Governance is not interview. It is not talking. It is about ensuring that when you turn on the light, you get light. When you turn on water, you get water. There is security. So he's gone around to ensure that we don't easily forget, to remember that there should and could be a leader who truly loves the people, who can move around 4, 5, 6, 10 states in a day. Because I know that with a leader who is strong, who has the energy, who has the mental capacity to go around and supervise work, Nigeria can work. And this is what Mr. Peter Obi has exemplified and has shown through all the travels and all the things we have done in the last couple of months.
Fantastic. Still on strategic consideration, let's talk about coalition building. I'm sure you know and you agree with me that in politics, you need friends, you need to build coalition, especially in a multi-ethnic and multi-diverse and multi-religious Nigeria. Now, we know that the Labour Party is not looking, I'm not saying it's not, but it's not looking like that vehicle for the obedient movement because there's been a lot of treachery and all that. Are the obedient looking at the possibility of a coalition with other forces or other like minds or mergers or something like that in the future going forward to 2027?
I mean, change is constant in life. 2021, nobody knew about the Labour Party. In fact, 2022, thereabout, nobody knew about the Labour Party. If you check through the trajectory of how we've done our politics, before the advent of Muhammadu Buhari, nobody knew about the APC. So, of course, the changes will happen, but that's not the focus for the obedient movement. The focus for the obedient movement, and this is what I alluded to when I spoke about in the introduction what Mr. Peter Obi is doing. The obedient movement is about a change in thinking, in action, and in the behavior of the average Nigerians. It's not about seizing or capturing power, but to ensure that whether it's 2027, whether it's 2031, to ensure that we have Nigerians who understand what it means to have good governance. You know, so in terms of consulting and mergers, those are natural processes that will happen. And while that is natural, that is not our focus because it will happen whether we like it or not. Our focus is to ensure that the values and the tenets of good governance, of accountability, of responsibility, like we've seen with what Mr. Peter Obi has done, you know, ensuring that communities have water, communities have viable people are able to go to school, you know, to ensure that we give back to those values. That's what our focus is, so that we can shape a new narrative when the cycle of election comes. Because when you have a merger, for example, if your values are not in place, the tendency to repeat the failures of the past will be there.
Interesting. So is it cast in stone that Mr. Peter Obi will be on the ballot as a presidential candidate in 2027, or is ready to sacrifice for maybe somebody from other part of the country and be a running mate? Or like I said, is it cast in stone that he will run as presidential candidate?
I think this is a very important question, and I think maybe this will be the first place that I will be saying this for people to understand the energy, the essence, and the spirit behind Mr. Peter Obi. You know, many people who are trying to consult, and it will be good for them to hear this. Mr. Peter Obi's following is not one that is transferable. Mr. Peter Obi's the energy behind him is the one seeking to run for a particular position. That's why you hear people say, I, Dr. Mo, we are the ones running for presidency. We're only using Mr. Peter Obi as a tool to the presidency. So it's important for people to understand this in very clear terms, that it is not in Mr. Peter Obi's place, you know, to take any other position aside what the energy behind him is asking for. It's not transferable. So he can't even sit to negotiate that, because the people who are the energy behind Mr. Peter Obi wants to lead Nigeria, wants a new Nigeria, and wants to control it right from the presidency. Anything else will be asking for something completely different.
I like that. I mean, you just, this is a no holds barred interview anyway, so I like the way you said it. Now, some members of your movement have said in the past, maybe just one or two possibly, said that they felt that Mr. Peter Obi should have fought, you know, with boycott, strikes, you know, South African style, violent kind of response when the elections were rigged, that the people we are dealing with in Nigeria, so to say, APC are people in power, they do not understand the language of non-violence. They do not understand the language of dialogue, that they just want, it's only confrontation. After all, that was what they did to Jonathan. Now, Mr. Peter Obi, I can even say I've read, I said, look, he doesn't want anybody to die. He believes in Nigeria and all that. Do you really believe that this approach, you know, of non-violence and all that, and enlightening the people touring Nigeria will work at the end of the day, considering, I'm putting in consideration that Nigerians are just hungry people. Look at the way people have died in the last year. Ibadan, Abuja, Anambra. There were other states actually that were not even reported that people died trying to get food. And when election comes, people will take 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, and that kind of thing. So do you think this strategy of nonviolence and strategic enlightenment, do you think it will work?
My brother, people mistaking rudeness for ruthlessness. People mistaking fearlessness for lack of a better word, maybe they mistaking that for brigandage, or what Mr. Peter Obi will call it rascality. Because Nigeria is such a religious nation and culture where, and I say this very lightly on the surface, where it is the amount of shouting you do, when you come out, we're a type of people that we pray, we fast, we do all night, you can see in the past, when we moved from 2024 to 2025, during the crossover, you saw what people did last year. They went to church, they prayed because the new year is coming, and all of that. People cried and all of that, because we have a God we don't see. So we think that it is how much we cry and shout that is what will give us victory at the end of the day. It is the same thing that applies to our politics. We think that when we snatch, when we grab, when we run away with it, that is what will give us victory. That is what people think. But I can tell you something, that what Martin Luther King did is the highest level of stability. What Mahatma Gandhi did, you see, what Mandela did after he came out of prison, what Mr. Peter Obi is doing is what will last forever. And this is what is important for people to get. For a man to be consistent, to be steady and sturdy, to refuse to adopt violence is the highest level of, how do you put it, fearlessness. For somebody to decide that, what, there is no terrain. You followed the movement and you see how much we have. We're in London today, we're in LA today, we're in Washington today, we're back to Kano, we're in Sokoto, we're in Lagos, we're in different places. That is what ruthlessness is about in the new age. This is what fearlessness is about. To be able to move through terrains of criminals, of all kinds of people fearlessly. The easiest thing to do is to burn down places, is to snatch, is to grab. That's outdated. That's outdated. That is the easiest thing to do. And what we're doing is not for the short run, it's for the long run. Will it work? It will definitely work. America today, Britain today, Singapore today is sitting on the value of that kind of, long-term values of consistency, of saying, no, we will not go in the way of anarchy. What people are used to is actually the short term, where you just steal ballot boxes and break people's head, and that's not what, it's not going to last. Because guess what? When you do it, another person will come. Nobody has the monopoly of violence or anarchy. Nobody does. What people do not have a monopoly of is the non-violent approach to things. And this is what we're bringing to the table. And we will do this for as long as we are here. And this is what will give the long-lasting values that generations unborn will come and see. Yes, we might not have conquered today, but I can tell you, as long as the earth remaineth, in 2027, we will see those values conquer, because people are tired of being killed. People are tired of hunger. People are tired of the stampede. They're tired of snatching and grabbing. So you snatched, you grabbed, you came onto power, you're causing pain, hunger. People are tired of that style. They're tired of marginalization, of religion, people are tired. It's outdated. What people are looking for are values like what the obedient movement is doing, like Mr. Peter Obi is epitomizing, to go the long haul, to stay on the values of what? Of the energy of stakeability, that is the higher power. And that's what and it is the only way that peace can be restored to the society that we have today. And I can tell you, because I move around with Mr. Peter Obi, I see that it's a growing energy. However, what people are confused about when they think that the energy is dwindling is because we're not in an election year. Right now, I wasn't even granting interviews, but this is 2025. I'm going to be granting more interviews now. As we move into 2026, people are going to see how we're going to leverage on different things that will give us the win that we're looking for, because Nigerians are tired, and this is the only methodology and approach that will give a lasting legacy for the generations unborn. And so, yes, it's going to work, and it's working already.
Fantastic. We're still talking to Dr. Moses Paul, aka popularly known as Dr. Mo. So now this logistics, moving around, I admire it. I'm telling you, I follow it, I admire it. Yeah, it's always spot on, you know, the logistics, moving around, driving around Nigeria, getting to Europe, America, and all that. Who finances all this? Is it financed by Mr. Peter Obi, or you get donations and all that? Can you answer that? Because people have asked me, actually.
I'm close to him enough, and I know that for all of our trips, 90% of the funds come from his private pocket. You know, he funds all of the trips that we do, and you know, as I follow him, I have my little businesses too, and I spend my own money too, and it's important for people to know this, because you see, if we have of course, he gets some form of support from one or two people, but like I said, 90%, because I know comes directly from him. And I move around with him, and I get to spend my own money from the little things that I do. We have nobody else is bankrolling this but Mr. Peter Obi himself. And it's a straightforward question. There is no any other thing to it.
Fantastic. So going to 2027, I said earlier that in the past, before 2023, our elections were free, but never fair, you know, but now they are not free, they're not fair, and it's looking like the votes will never count again, you know. So going to 2027, how do we address this issue of votes not counting, irresponsible INEC? We've had 2 elections, I think 3. I think we've had Ondo and Edo, I think, maybe there's a 3rd one. And you can see clearly that INEC was actually worse than they were in the presidential election. There's no need for any, you know, except people that are benefiting from what INEC is doing. I think INEC is a sham. So how do we address this going forward?
It is such a shame. The things, it's so shameful what INEC and some individuals, beginning from Professor Yakub Mahmoud and all the commissioners and people have done. Not only that, it is also shameful what we have seen with certain individuals across the different political parties. One thing is very clear, that until the thinking and until the actions and the behavior of the average Nigerian changes, it doesn't even matter what form of regulations or reform that gets to be done. You know, and I'll say it here, there are street lights all over in many places in Abuja, but people still decide to break it. So it is not because of reforms, you know, that people do what is right. It is the people. And that's why I said that for those who are patriots, who believe in a new Nigeria, who want their children to grow in a society with security, not kidnapping that is going on. We're speaking right now. I know a few days ago, a lawmaker in the Southeast was kidnapped. People are being kidnapped as we're having this interview right now. People are in different bushes, kidnapped in Nigeria. You know, if you want to have a society where there is security, people are not dying of food and through stampede and hunger, we must continue to preach. We must continue to talk about these values that would allow us to have leaders who would hold to the promissory note and be able to take their rightful place in our constitution. Because I'll tell you what people are not aware of, and why we need to keep preaching, is that when you steal power, when you come into power, whatever values that you come into power with, there is no way, if you steal power you steal ballot boxes, you know, and you come into power, you can never use that power for good. It's the law of nature. It is a spiritual law. And so what is ours to do is to continue to preach, to continue to engage, to continue to strengthen grassroots participation, to continue to leverage and promote civic education, to continue to push on these boundaries. That's our call to do. And other nations have done it. We are not the first to do it. We must continue to preach that and continue to show the mirror in the faces of INEC, in the faces of all the people who have perpetuated evil. Because guess what? Their children, their parents, their people are also dying. And so we'll continue to preach, because if they don't change, we're going to continue to have a bad nation. Our job is to remain consistent, irregardless of what they're doing, and to also to say that, see, it is through the blood and through the guts of patriots and citizens that a nation will be built. So as they are trying to steal, you must also be there to try to counter them. When we talk about INEC, my brother, it's not everybody in INEC that is bad. It is because the good people in INEC refuse to do what is right. We're looking forward to a day where commissioners in INEC will say, no, we're not going to do this. We're going to retire. People in police will say, no, we're not going to do this. We're going to retire. People in the civil service and those who participate in elections and the youth corps will withdraw and say, no, we will not do this. This is our nation. Today in America and other nations, it is citizens that stood up to fight for the rights of their nation. This is what we're asking the average Nigerians to do. And that's our job to do. We must continue to be consistent, as they also are consistent in their evil. We must be consistent in our good, because one day good will overcome evil.
Absolutely. I think it's important to add that Dr. Moses Paul is a coach, author, Dacia's thought leader, and he's also a writer, social activist. He's the team lead of the Free Nigeria movement. So I'm sure when you hear him speak, I just have to add that for context. So you've gone around the North a lot with Mr. Obi. I mean, it's like almost every week there's something to do in the northern part. You have donated money and all that. How do you view the reception, the acceptance in that part of the country? Because it does look from the last election that that's the only part of the country that needs to, given the requisite support, and it to be a slam dunk, even going to 2027.
The reception is overwhelming. That's what I can tell you.
Oh, wow.
There was, I remember when Mr. Peter Obi went to the University of Sokoto. He actually went to drill a borehole in the engineering or the agri department, the faculty of agriculture, and the professors and the students, and they all came out and they said, this is the first of its kind for an individual to contribute, to ensure that they have water in the agricultural engineering department faculty of the school. I mean, I have the videos, and old people, young people, they all came in. It was overwhelming because they haven't really touched base with Mr. Peter Obi in terms of what he provides, in terms of his values, and they listened to him and they talked with him. I remember driving about 15 kilometers right into the woods to meet some certain Fulani settlement in Birnin Kebbi, and it's almost frightening because the people were saying that some of the places where kidnapping is done, that we actually bypass some of those places. And that's why I'm saying that that's what fearlessness is. Mr. Peter Obi has been to those places. Is it Niger State? Is it Nasarawa State? Is it Kaduna State? Is it Gombe State? All the places, it is Adamawa State, all the places he has gone to. And I'm talking after this was after the elections. The reception, I wish I can share with some of the videos with you, because I took testimonials from some of those people who couldn't even speak English. They know Mr. Peter Obi. And many of them recount the fact that they regretted not voting for him in the last election because they did not know what manner of man this, he is. And now they are seeing it firsthand. And I can tell you, going by the reports and the grassroots participation we're having, even from the young leaders across the northern region right now, and I'm talking about the core north from Kano and all these other places, with first-hand information, touching base, the provision of water to communities that have never seen good drinking water before. You know, you remember sometimes people were talking about how in terms of the quality of the borehole, and I'm like, places where people have never seen water, clean water, are now having tanks. Ours is not about, is not for the show, but to ensure that real human beings, Nigerians, you know, receive quality water. You can imagine he's building arrays of what? Of toilets in Almajiri schools, revamping, paying for teachers. You know, he went to the Fullman school where there are only women. He's attending to nursing schools in Kaduna, in northern Nigeria, and all of that. It's simply overwhelming. His message is only, there are just 3 key messages: quality education, ensuring that the health facilities are in place, and ensuring that people are pulled out of poverty in northern Nigeria. He's spoken so much about how northern Nigeria can feed Africa. If we can only unlock the agricultural potential of northern Nigeria, and he's given different, you know, examples with data on the value of the landmass of Niger or Kebbi as compared to other nations who are raking in billions of dollars. These are the things we can do. And he's showing life examples. I can tell you, with what we are doing, even in this 2025, as we move into 2026, it's going to be overwhelming. And I'm so grateful for this administration, the Muslim ticket administration. I say that because it did something. Because now I roll with the Muslims in the north, and they're like, now we know that religion is not going to work. They use religion. They told us that we need to vote for Muslim, but now we are dying. And we can see somebody who is not a Muslim, but loves us enough to give us water, to take our children to school, who has sat with us. And we can see that no longer will they use religion. No longer will they use what? Tribe. No longer will they use some of those parochial tools that have divided us in the past. I know that with this, and with the consistency of Mr. Peter Obi, it's going to be overwhelming, much more than people have ever seen. The revolution they saw in 2023 is actually a rehearsal compared to what is coming in 2027.
Interesting. So let's talk about Labour Party. You know, I had an interview with Akel Shitoko. I'm sure you know him very well. And he mentioned that they got one of the things that went wrong with the last 2023 election. Because I have to ask you this question, because I always ask people that in the obedient movement, time I ask them, I try the top notch. I asked Oseloka the same thing as Akel Shitoko, but I like there was something Akel Shitoko said that I want to check with you. He said they got a list of about 120 polling agents from the Labour Party hierarchy under Abure, and after some forensic examination, it was discovered that only about just 10,000 of them were real people. Is that part of the fraudulent things that affected the Labour Party losing the election, not having enough polling agents all over the country?
I mean, that is the DG of the Obidadi campaign organization. Yes. So he has some insight, knowledge, and data, you know, and it is within his purview to be able to put that out. First and foremost, I don't want us to confuse the inside the inner activities of the Labour Party in terms of inadequacy or inefficiency, you know, with not necessarily that obedient movement, with the real reason why the election was lost. The election was stolen. You know, INEC rigged the election for the ruling party. That was the reason why we lost the election. I don't want us to lose sight of that, because what happened with the Labour Party does happen with the PDP and with the APC. Those are internal squabbles and internal stuff that even if you have a new party, that is still going to happen. So I don't want us to, while I agree that that is there, you know, because this is 2025, and I understand how news, whatever I say now, people will go to Atlanta Discourse, they'll cut out that part and then they will use it and say,
I know.
We lost the election because INEC, I can be quoted, INEC rigged the election for the ruling party. We don't need to, I mean, we can discuss the internal issues with the Labour Party, which is, of course, one of the things that Balogun Ashitoku talked about in terms of the data. So, of course, that's one of it.
So, but what's the relationship of the obedient movement and the Labour Party today?
It hasn't changed from what it is.
Okay.
The obedient movement is not warehoused in any political party. I can tell you because I know that. I have a lot of people from the APC who are followers of Mr. Peter Obi. I have a lot of people in the PDP who are followers of Mr. Peter Obi. And because we have a lot of people don't understand the energy of the obedient movement. The obedient movement is a movement, it's not a political party. Okay. So it has its root in all the political parties. But of course, because Mr. Peter Obi particularly was running under the vehicle of the Labour Party, it gravitated all the obedience as we have to voting for him in the Labour Party, including those who are in the PDP and in the APC. So, of course, in the last election, we took our part with the Labour Party, which is still what it is now until whatever Mr. Peter Obi decides. That's why you hear Obedience say that Mr. Peter Obi is actually our political party. We are voting for Mr. Peter Obi. It is wherever he is. That's the relationship we share, with the Labour Party. It is because Mr. Peter Obi is there. And should he call for whatever badge he picks on, that is the badge of the obedient movement, irrespective of the political party that any obedient movement is holding. There are many who hold the card of the APC, but I can tell you they're voting for Mr. Peter Obi. That's the difference, and it's important for people to understand. I mean, yes, I'm a carrying card member of the Labour Party today, but like I said, I also know people who are card carrying members of PDP and APC, but they are all part of the obedient movement. The obedient movement is a movement for good governance. It's a movement for accountability. It's a movement for a new Nigeria, irrespective of the party that you're holding. But because Mr. Peter Obi is in the Labour Party today, the obedients are voting and rooting for the Labour Party for the singular reason that Mr. Peter Obi is there.
All right, brilliant. So let's talk about Delfar. It's out now on bail. No, I saw all that you did. You always did something about it, logistically, legally. You and Twitter space, accountable times, and all that. Now, going forward, with the way Nigeria is going, almost going to be a one-party state. Such things will happen. Maybe not just delay is just one more person. From my own experience of dictatorship and one-party state, they've been arresting a lot of people now, young, innocent people that save their mind. It's almost impossible to criticize or be opinionated in present-day Nigeria. I mean, I don't have to be apologetic about it. That's just a statement of fact.
Right.
It's looking like the ship of state is. I mean, it's almost it would be unfair to call it a failed state because the police is like a cankerworm. I mean, the judiciary is derelict. It's what everybody knows. And if those particular areas of the society, I mean, the legislative arm of government is rubber stamping too. So it's like nothing really works. That's why the obedient movement is vital statistics, because they seem to be the only vibrant opposition in Nigeria. So going forward, there are still some people locked up. Does the obedient movement have maybe a department for fighting or this kind of things going forward? Because it's going to happen, arresting people, fighting for release and all that. Because the Dele's case, it looked like Dele was not caught unaware, the way I see it, but it does look like maybe the movement was caught unaware. Because, for example, the trip to Afeba Balola, people like Shure, and I read what you wrote about him, were saying that people went to beg this. And I know you were part of, in the inside of all those stuff, the meeting with Dele and all that. But it's a 2-in-1, actually. What will the movement do with future arrest, one, and what really transpired in that during that visit to Afeba Balola and then subsequently to Dele in prison? before it was released?
Very, very important and vital question and discussion to have on this. Before I dive into that, I don't know if you saw the report by the NBS, as the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, about the judiciary, where they said that the judiciary is the second institution in Nigeria in terms of bribery and corruption. I mean, don't forget that the NBS is Nigerian Bureau of Statistics.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That came up saying that they hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. I can hear you.
Okay. So the MBS government are the one putting out those data. So you can see that what Delfar to me is fighting is something that the government also agrees with in terms of how corrupt the judiciary is on one part. On the second part, I'm a student. Every time I come to Atlanta, I like to go to the Martin Luther King Center. Just like when I go to South Africa, I'm a student of the Mandela. I follow through the things that are happening. I also see the big intervention. Today, Israel and Palestine are fighting. We have Ukraine and Russia. And many people will be shocked, but it's public knowledge that they still sit at tables to negotiate while they are fighting. This is what happens. And so that was why I had to do that reply to, I call him my Bon Showori, because he's actually absurd. It will be the height of naivety, when people, and it's also indirect to answer your question. Part of what you saw, that engagement, that bold intervention by Mr. Peter Obi is what the Obedient Movement is prepared to do. Just a few days ago, myself and Tanko, we visited with many of those who were incarcerated, who are part of the Obedient Movement. We're visiting with them, and we're put a mechanism in place. There are groups of lawyers and people in place, because these are all the things that happen even with the civil rights movement, to test the law, until we are organized. If we agitate from here till tomorrow, nothing is going to happen. There are levels of advocacy and mobilization. But irregardless of your agitation, your organizing, your advocacy, your mobilization, if you don't organize, you can't go anywhere. And this is what the Obedient Movement has done. So that while Mr. Peter Obi is there having the big intervention, you can see Dr. Tanko and the rest of the people who are on ground with Delfar to me. I mean, I was there, I was there with Afe Babalola, as I was also there with Mr. Peter Obi when he was speaking with Delfar to me. So I know the account, so to see people put out what they're not even aware of, number one, is not only surprising, but also very distasteful and shameful. And then the third one is the fact that bold interventions and negotiations is not begging. If Mr. Peter Obi went to tell Delfar to me, for example, to go and apologize, then you will say that is what, he will be uncalled for. Or if he goes there he didn't go to beg. He went there to understand, the status quo. And I'll tell you this, for example, part of those negotiations is to also let the Baba know that, see, you're doing this does not only expose the judiciary, but has also made Delfar to me a global icon. So you can see.
Absolutely.
You understand? So those are the kinds of conversations that go on when you have those things, so that people can see what they're doing wrong, and to also cushion. And there are many intelligent and intellectual and wisdom-based negotiations and things that go on behind the scene that even allowed for even the bailout that you see. I'll tell you how bad Nigeria is. Delfar to me the intention was to keep him there forever, at least keep him there till maybe 2026 or 2027. It is through bold interventions and negotiations like this that sends fear and also shivers. It is not just protests. What are you talking about? NSAS, were people not hung down? And bad governance, people were shot. It is through bold negotiations, because the issues with Nigeria is hydra-headed. And so to think that you can just go out on the street and shout like Showore is doing. I led the protest for 23 days, probably the longest protest in Nigeria's history. But because it was well coordinated and well intended, and there was no soul lost, You don't hear people talk about it. If one person was missing or dead, then of course you hear about it. And this is what we need to do, to tell people that you can have an opposition that is still law abiding. You can have bold intervention within the law. What is the biggest thing that you can do is the ability to be able to sit with the opposites, your people that in quotes you call your enemy, and be able to convert them to be able to see your side, your perception. Because I'll tell you something, even the bad people don't want a bad country. That's why you see our leaders run. Why is our president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is running to France and UK, Buhari running to France and UK all the time? Why are they going to hospitals in America and other places? Because even they too don't like a bad country. Bad people don't want bad country. And our job is to play the big brother, both as Mr. Peter Obi and as Obedience. What we are bringing to the table is something unique. Is the only thing that can heal and save Nigeria. And so those are the things you saw with the cases with Delfar. And guess what? It's far from being over. But because I know Delfar, and guess we spoke 3 days before even he was picked. And everything that he said was going to happen happened chronologically and sequentially. He knew exactly. Delfar understands how, I don't know, it's like you know the thief, you know how these criminals act, and you actually know how they are going to act. And so you even say it and put checks in place before they arrive. That's why you had CCTV cameras everywhere, and they came and of course, they played by the book, and they were caught pants down like they are always caught, But like I said, we are putting formations in place in terms of the obedient movement to be able to engage every time our people are picked, every time. So we have a lot of that in place. And of course, Mr. Peter Obi is not sleeping. He is taking the bull by the horn. He's ensuring that because his strategy is not because he wants to, it's not for the show. This is the difference between Mr. Peter Obi and all the other people that you see parading themselves. He would rather ensure that a Delfar is saved without anything happening to his life, than coming out, and he doesn't do things for the news. He does it for the reasons for why, they should be done. He believes in, he is such a gentleman in terms of law abiding. He's the epitome of what you call decorum and democracy. And so it is, and that's why I insist on putting some of those things out, even though he's not happy with me most of the time when I do that, because he's not doing it for the TV, for the show. He really truly believes in the new Nigeria. And so we're covering every aspect of the things you've said, and rightly so with Delfar.
All right, fantastic. I mean, I have to agree with you. I said it too, that Dele was not surprised. He was very ready. I'm intentional about most of the things I hear him say. I was analyzing it, and most empirically for that matter. And it did look like he saw it coming. He was ready for it and whatever. Now, my next question to you really is, where is Dati Baba Ahmed in the scheme of things today? I mean, you're doing a lot of traveling. I mean, it's a lot of work for Mr. Peter Obi and all that. Is he still in this? I know he appears once in a while. He has a lot of respect for Mr. Peter Obi, and I know they have a fantastic relationship, So my question is not whether they're good. I know they're in fantastic terms and they're like brothers, but where is he in the scheme of things? The logistics of moving around, helping with borehole, finances here, going to speak to Nigerians in America, Britain, what have you. Where is that Baba Ahmed in the scheme of all this?
I mean, like you rightly said, this is where a lot of people, and in answering this question, I will help to share clarity about this, because people forget that because Mr. Peter Obi has changed the narrative of how politics is being done in Nigeria, people are now holding him to higher standards. And what do I mean by that? Because he didn't go to sleep, he didn't go to rest. Immediately after the election, he jumped on the road and started moving. And I'm saying it here that is not how things are done. This is not an election year. I'm sure when the election year comes around, you see Dati Baba Ahmed. That is the usual thing that is done. What we are seeing right now is just the ingenuity of Mr. Peter Obi as a person. So it will be unfair to now start dragging everybody to do what he's doing. So I mean, like you rightly said, fantastic relationship. He's there once in a while. He does his bit. Don't forget, he runs corporations. He runs university. He has all kinds of things. His hands are full. He's traveling around the world. And I mean, he's there. But what we are seeing right now is just what Mr. Peter Obi has always done. It's just that after the 2023 general election, some of us have become appendage to who he is and what he's doing. And that's why we're seeing the likes of Dr. Mo and other people who are going around with him. But everything is fine and good and cool with Dati Baba Ahmed.
All right, cool. So, I mean, it's not clear to everybody in Nigeria that when you say owners of Nigeria, it's no more a cliche, right? I'm sure you agree with me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there are actually people they call owners of Nigeria, and it does look like maybe the current president may be having a head on with it. I'm not sure, but at least based on what you read, because anybody that understands Nigeria will know that in a third world country, when you see billionaires, they are a representation of, the owners of that country. And if you want to encroach on some of their businesses, you're confronting those people. So those things are not, you don't have to be a journalist or a police or anything to know it's there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I was told that, I mean, from somebody I felt that I have a lot of respect for that. One of the mistakes Peter Obi made in the 2023 election was that he did not have an agreement with the owners of Nigeria. And I mean, I'm not going to call their name, there are 5 of them, but we all know who they are. And I'm sure about 2 of them actually supported Mr. Obi, at least publicly by their body language. I don't know financially, but they said that he was their candidate. So these people, 1 or 2 that I spoke to, said if Peter Obi had negotiated with those owners of Nigeria, maybe the outcome would have been better, that they did not want surprises, they did not know whether it was going to change the complete narrative, something within that periphery. Do you think that was an issue? Then going forward, is there a plan to talk to the owners of Nigeria? At least we agree they are no more a cliche. They are not. Oh, God. I mean, you should know.
The real owners of Nigeria that I know are the hungry Nigerians, those suffering, those dying of stampede, those are marginal children, those
but they're not in control. They're not in control of anything.
Yeah, I mean, I understand.
The
elites are there, and everybody can assume what name they want to. I don't know as to whether there was a mistake according to whoever it is that is talking. But what I do know is that in the last 1 year, at least, I know that Mr. Peter Obi is engaging with those that matter. He's engaging with the grassroots people. You remember there was an interview where he was one journalist, I mean, and I like what she said, really, so I'm going to even call her name, Dunu Kobara. Dunu Kobara said, he has become so pedestrian. And that was, for me, a very fantastic statement, because we haven't had a president of Nigeria that is pedestrian, and I'll say it here, that Muhammadu Buhari was a northern president. Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a Yoruba president. We've never had a Nigerian president that is for the masses. And this is what we hope to see in the next cycle of election, because Mr. Peter Obi is that pedestrian president who is taking picture with the gate men, with the smelling people on the street, with the real owners of Nigeria. He is actually very pedestrian, regardless of your tribe, your religion, your whatever you come from, he does not even want to know. He wants to just be able to touch base with you. And it is something so beautiful. So I believe that, well, like I said, there are 2 classes of owners of Nigeria. The other ones, I don't know. But going by what Mr. Peter Obi is doing, the negotiation is having right now with the imams, with the northern elites, with the pastors, with people across board. Those are the real owners of Nigeria. And maybe he did not do a good job at that in 2023. But what he's doing now will give him the win in 2027. Because guess what? For those who allow the ballot boxes to be snatched and grabbed. Those real owners of Nigeria, they will stand down anybody who wants to snatch, grab, and run away with their boxes right now. Why? Because Mr. Peter Obi has had a negotiation with them. He has shown them clearly that I will give you clean water. I will give you electricity. I'll protect you. That is the social contract that is signing with the real owners of Nigeria. And because he's signing those contracts right now, the owners of Nigeria will give him Nigeria to rule.
Absolutely. I mean, I pray so. Everybody wants a better Nigeria. I have two more questions for you before you go. I know you're running a very, very tight schedule. Now on the judiciary, I asked a question about INEC and all that. The judiciary too is, dilly-dally. You don't know where they stand. It's like they're being controlled by the executive. Going to 2027, how do we, how does the Britain movement? There's very little expectation from the judiciary. The Nigerian system is you just give up. So most people we can't beat them, join them. You understand? I mean, clearly our religious leader too, a lot of us think they're in cohort with the executive because nobody seems to be saying the truth anymore. The traditional rulers are probably even worse off, but now the judiciary, how do we tackle it? Because in the case of Delfar to me, if there was no pressure, he'd probably still be in prison. You understand? There are people now that are detained for no just cause, even against what the law, the criminal code, the law, the constitution says, just detain people and all that. So how will the obedience? I know you said you've got lawyers and all that, but going forward, is there any attempt at mitigating against any disaster that will come from the Nigerian judiciary? Because it looks like it's going to get worse, Now, somebody said that, now, that's a question I asked, and somebody said that, I think it was Professor Odinkalo, he said, look, all the judges are making their children judges, all the politicians are making their wives judges, and they've succeeded so much that, it would be impossible for them to rule in favor of the people or do the right thing. So why should we be positive about the future, even if Mr. Peter Obi is doing the right thing?
It's one of the most beautiful questions that I would attempt to answer. And I do that because my perception is that of nation building. I'm looking at things and like I said, I'm very happy that this particular regime came up with the Muslim ticket. And now the whole world can see that that is just completely baseless, if not useless, that religion does not give us what we're looking for. What the judiciary is doing is so beautiful because this is what will bring the true and real and lasting revolution. When you tell people, go to court, it is because you own the court. A time is coming, 2027 is coming, where we will tell you, we are not going to court. The voting and election will start and end up in the polling unit. People think that time will not come. It is things like this that will help to bring the revolution very quickly. Because right now we know that INEC are not going to deliver. We know that the judiciary is not going to deliver. So you cannot come and tell us, go to court anymore. I mean, like I know, it's either you will put us in jail for 27 years like Mandela, or you will kill us like Martin Luther. But now we know what is going to work and what is not going to work. So there will be only one way out. So it is good. You see, when people are doing things, they are not aware that what they are doing, they actually, you are helping, how do I put it now? If Nigeria was going to be saved maybe in the next 200 years, what has happened between Buhari and Tinubu, they've helped us to crash the work we are supposed to do. I mean, look at any nation that is developed today. It took many years. And this is what the average Nigerians need to understand, that nation building is not a one-day job. And that for Nigeria to get up and vote right and do right is not just going to happen overnight. But you see, the extent of evil allows us to shorten the night for the morning. And this is what we are seeing. So nobody's going to come up and tell us to go to court anymore. Now we know. They also know that it's either they do the right thing or they do the right thing. There are just no two ways about it. And so I'm very happy that they've done this, because now they know that we do not trust the judiciary and we do not trust INEC. So the whole world is now going to see in 2027. I'm happy with people like late Umar Musa Yaradua, who said, I mean, as a president, he said, the election that brought me to power is flawed, and I intend to do what is right. You know, you remember late Mantu also said that. He said, we destroy the process of electioneering. You know, those kind of things helps us, is helping us. What these people, what the current regime has done is so beautiful. You know, buy up all the judiciary, build houses for them, ensure that we will not even agree to go to court anymore. Nobody's going to court anymore because the judiciary will not determine our election anymore. That is why we have the INEC. But right now, part of what we're doing is INEC must be what? Must be disbanded, just like NSAS. We are going to end INEC because we already know that INEC will not deliver any dividends of democracy. So it is beautiful what they've done. And guess what? People might not see it. But if Mr. Peter will be running for office for the first time, INEC said he got 6 million. And the current president asked 8 million for somebody who just run for election with all the rigging. And I hope you know that the 6 million he got was before they pulled the IREV, because they actually did that. After he got 6 million, they went and removed the plug, because Mr. Peter would have gotten more than 30 million votes, if not 40 million. It was at that point they removed it. So it is the 6 million that was there when they removed the IREV. That is what they announced. And it's important for us to understand that. Guess what? In going forward, part of the reform that we are asking for, the electoral reform, is also to allow for what? For independent observers, just like we have in America. You know, yes, INEC might have the right to be able to make announcement, but there are independent observers who also have all their units in all the local government who also makes pronouncement. So if we have 5 independent observers or 3 independent observers with their own IREV too, and INEC is declaring a different result, but we have 3, 4 independent observers declaring one result, you know that there is no way anybody is going to go with the result of INEC. And if INEC knows that there are other independent observers, definitely they would ensure that if they pull their own IREV, other IREVs are working. So they will ensure that their IREV is there. These are part of the things. These are part of what we are doing to ensure that what happened in the last election does not happen again.
Yeah, my last question to you, is this. Do you think this president, that's Bola Ahmed Tinubu, do you think he's suffering a moral burden? Because if you look at the body language, I mean, for someone that I've watched him from 1990, he has a natural, confident demeanor, and all that. But being president, it looks a bit, with maybe a more, his body language seems dull. So my question is, do you think he's suffering a moral burden because of the way he won? For example, I mean, in 1983 election, Shagari won with 47% of the vote, and it was still contested heavily, and the military ended up coming in because of the fiasco. Now, in this case, he got 38% of the total vote count, which is not a pan-Nigerian mandate in any way, because he won 12 states. Atiku won 12, Obi won 12 to 11 states and FCT, and I think Kwankwaso said NNPP won just 1 state, which explains the 36 plus 1 plus FCT. So, and of course, there were other issues, certificate scandal, etc., etc. We can go on and on, drug for feature, as a proceed of heroin, blah, blah, blah. Now, do you think he's suffering a moral burden? Do you think all those things are affecting his ability to deliver? Because in as much as I'm sure you didn't support it, a lot of people don't support it, but people are still disappointed. They will have expected that somebody of Bola Tinubu, caliber should do better than he's doing, including myself. I expected more from him, actually. Even if he does not, I mean, I would expect him to score a 50, 55, or 60. Right now, it's all F9, and I'm being fair to him. So do you think he's suffering a moral burden?
Is it that I think, or the entire government? Because I've attended a few events where some of the ministers and some of the leaders of the MDAs show up. I can tell you, my brother, that there is no time in Nigeria's history where leaders or rulers or head of organizations under this regime are not even proud. They can't lift their head up, even when they address, body of people. Is the lowest of the lows that any nation can ever go through. You watch their body language, and it comes to the fact that you can't come to my house and steal. I know you are driving my car, even though you have more power than myself, but it is my car you are driving. When you are passing, you can't be doing champagne and raising the volume, because even if I don't say anything, in my mind, I'm saying that you are a thief. I mean, I know if I say it out loud, you're going to beat me because you have more power than I am. But because you know that you stole my car. So this is what we're seeing with this regime. There is the boldness that is expected, the fearlessness, the patriotism that is expected, and all of this is not seen. And to tell you what, it's even made worse when you now employ people who have insulted you, denigrated you, abused you, said things that we cannot ever say, unprintable things. You now take them to become your spokespeople. What you're doing is not just immoral. You are affecting the moral fabric of the Nigerian state, because the younger generation are confused. They don't understand anymore. It's like you are rewarding evil. People that insult you, you reward them with position. People that steal ballot boxes, that rig elections, you are rewarding them. So you can see what is going on in our civic spaces right now. Young people are very confused. They think that Yahoo stealing is good. They think that if you don't have certificates, they think that if you steal ballot boxes, they think if you insult the president is good. And we're seeing them with some of the people who live abroad, who are always on social media, who I call the ministers of Peter Obi affairs, who are just there, always insulting, denigrating Mr. Peter Obi because they're expecting to be given ambassadorial positions. This is what is happening with this regime. What it has done is that because there is no public trust, the confidence of resolution is completely removed. It is so sad, but this is what we see with this regime. And I don't know if it can ever, there are things, this is why you see in climates where things are done properly, people resign from office in order to try and uphold dignity of office, because whatever office you occupy, that office still has a dignity, irrespective of the people occupying that office. I don't know if this regime can ever, in its lifetime, be able to reclaim that boldness and confidence because of, like you rightly said, the eroding of the moral compass and boldness that we have seen with this regime.
Do you have any message for Nigerians before you go, as your party shot? Any message, not just for Biden, but for Nigerians generally?
My message has always been for Nigerians, and people have asked me across board. I believe in Nigeria. I believe Nigeria will change for the better. I believe that Nigeria is actually the victim. We don't have people who are speaking for Nigeria. Many people are confused when they say, oh, I hate Nigeria. You don't hate Nigeria. You hate the leaders. You hate the people. Our founding fathers did fantastic. When you speak about Awolowo, you speak about Sir Ahmadu Bello, you speak about Nnamdi Azikiwe, these people did a lot. When you talk to them, our founding fathers have only one problem. The enemy of Nigeria was the colonialist. And when you talk about those that came after them, maybe when you talk about the younger Fela Anikulapo or Wole Soyinka, the younger version, they will tell you that the Nigerian problem is the military. But today, my brother, when you say who is Nigeria's problem, the current Nigerians are completely confused. Some think it is the constitution. Some think it's Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Some think it's Mr. Peter Obi. Some think it's religion. Some think, oh, it's the governance structure. They think it's all kinds of things. No. What they are thinking is not what the problem is. The problem has to do with the value system. Because if you look at the way Nigerians produce their leaders, whether political leaders, religious leaders, leaders from organization, there is something that Nigerians are not seeing. How we produce our leaders, even in the church and in the mosque, it shows you that the problem is with the average Nigerians. This is why I completely align with Mr. Peter Obi's ideology, that we must continue to educate people, continue to speak about our value system, because it does not matter the reform we bring to INEC or we bring to the military. If the people themselves are not changed, what we're going to have is Nigeria will continue to have leaders that represent their value system. This is my message, to understand that those few patriots in INEC, in the military, in the different sectors, wherever you are, continue to hold yourself high, continue to fight, because a new Nigeria will come. It is a dream that we will achieve, but we're going to achieve it with our blood, with our guts, with our fearlessness, with our continuous tenacity of holding up what is right. A new Nigeria is possible, but it's going to come at a price that we can pay. And I want to say thank you to Atlanta Discourse for continuing to holding up values and discussions that continue to push the narrative of a new Nigeria. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak here today.
Yes, it's a wrap there. Thank you, Moses Paul. You've said it all. We are all guilty. That's the way I put it. We are all guilty. That policeman that sells bullets to armed robbers for Peters is guilty. That teacher that gives calls to kids in class whose parents have given him money or something, you are part of the problem. You know, if you're a civil servant that is on 500,000 naira salary and you built a house for 100 billion naira somewhere, you are part of the problem. You know, it's clear that our leaders in Nigeria are a reflection of the people. That's why I agree with Moses Paul. Moses Paul, thank you, Dr. Mo. You've done very well. We like what you do. We like your patriotic demeanor, gesture, and everything. Keep doing it. Nigeria needs help, and we'll do what we have to do. Atlanta Discourse is no holds barred. We are not pro or anti. We just say it the way it is. To our viewers all over the world, we say thank you. Happy New Year once again. It's a wrap there. Bye.